Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. You, I see. Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, the regulation.
UIC Liberty TV. Change you can trust.
Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. My name is Joseph Patterson, and tonight we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, defending your rights and freedom. Why is it that this topic is so important to me is that the whole essence of rights and freedoms are what you say now is the genesis behind the UIC. We're a rights-based movement. We are a freedom-fighting movement. Three words kind of sum us up. Number one is unity. We want to unify the country. Number two is liberty. We want to liberate our people. And number three is empowerment. We want to equip our people to achieve their maximum potential. And so whenever I talk about the subject of rights and freedoms, I get particularly excited, but I'm going to try to calm myself down tonight. And we're going to have a special guest in the house, someone who I have not spoken to in any great degree about the subject of our rights and freedoms. So it's going to be a kind of fresh set of eyes, if you will, a different perspective, maybe. And just to hear his thoughts about some of the ideas. Sorry. Some of the ideas I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. I know there are many of you out there from different on different channels who are here with us tonight. I'm going to make sure you're on the screen at some point. I see Juliet Chambers and For the Truth and what is that, Buff Leo Soja on as well, and Carol Spence. Thanks for all of you wherever you are, whether you're on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in tonight on this topic. I'm going to also take your questions and comments as we go through the topic as well. But let us dive into it. I want to give a little bit of perspective before I bring on Mr. Francis. I'm going to start by saying this. Did you know that only the rich and powerful are truly free in this country and in much of the world? If you're not rich and powerful, you cannot enjoy real freedom. In fact, you enjoy the illusion of freedom. The system is designed to make you think you are free, but in essence, as I'm going to explain to you tonight, we're not so free after all. So let's analyze this statement carefully to see if you agree or you disagree. After which I will, share with you some more and hopefully clarify for you whether or not this statement is true. So I'll say it again. Did you know that only the rich and the powerful are truly free? Only the rich and powerful are truly free. For the rest of us, freedom is an illusion. Now, what does it mean to be free? That's a very important question. What does it mean to be free, really? What does that mean to you? What does it mean to be free? We use this word so freely, and we may not actually know what it means. Now, here's my definition of freedom, or what I prefer to call liberty. You're free if you are allowed by law to do whatever you wish with your own life, your own time, and your own property, provided you do not initiate force or fraud to take or infringe upon the life, the liberty, or property rights of others. That's when you are free. So if you don't have this, you're not free. That's my opinion. And you're going to get to challenge that tonight. So do you agree? Yes or no? Think about it. And if you do agree, the rest of my presentation will make a lot of sense to you. Otherwise, stick around until the end and see if you change your mind. Now, if being free means you have the right to do with your life, your liberty, and your property as you choose, providing, of course, that you don't initiate force or use fraud to infringe on somebody else's life, liberty, or property, would you say that you are free today? If that is the definition, I say no, you're not free. We're not free. And so, on that note, I'm going to welcome on stage Mr. Francis, and he's going to say, how does those words impact him when he hears them? Mr. Francis.
Hey, good night, everyone. Oh
Welcome,
boy,
sir. How you
that
doing?
is a heavy topic.
Yes.
I'm good. I'm good. Heavy and interesting topic.
Yeah. So I
Um,
want to get your take on this idea of freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Let's start there. When you think of freedom, what do you think of?
well, okay. So first of all, I agree with you that we suffer from the illusion of freedom,
Mm,
right? I'm just going to give you a little backstory. Even when I worked in the regular corporate entities, I always described the average corporate entity as a plantation with AC. But the thing is
mm,
that because the slaves are now better dressed than their ancestors, they don't know that they are slaves. And we can put that out in the wider society that, because of the illusion of freedom,
mm,
most of us don't even know that we are slaves. you know,
mm,
I mean, if we want to like not being free to being, to being a slave.
mm,
Um, there are the thing about it is that we're not really free, but there's been a lot of probably call it PR to convince us that we are, which is a
mm.
whole different level of oppression, because now you convince the person that hey, you're really free when you're not.
Can
And
you
when we get to
imagine?
a certain level, they start to draw the noose and say, whoa, come, rein you in.
Mm. Can you
So
imagine to be so? Can you imagine to convince a dog, for example, that he's a cat and he's going around thinking he's a cat when he's a dog, or convincing a monkey that he's a man, or a man that he's a monkey. So to say a person is free, and I just gave some definitions a while ago, and I want to revisit them quickly because I want people to listen to the words. Here's what I say. My definition: if you are free, you are allowed by law to do whatever you wish with your own life, with your own time, and with your own property, whatever you wish, provided you do not initiate force or use fraud to infringe on the life, the liberty, or the property rights of others. So I've really made it very simple for even a child to understand that you have exclusive domain over your life, your time, and your property. Now, of course, you have to define each of those. What is your property? But you have self ownership, and with self ownership comes property ownership, property rights. You have the right to your body, you have the right to your earnings, and so on. Now, why are these three words so important? You're going to see when I break down. I want to look at a few things that we think we're free in, and you tell me if you're free in them. The first one I want to ask you about is the issue of, let me put it this way. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Francis. Can you decide today what foods and drinks are available in the marketplace and sell or purchase whichever one you choose without government regulations arbitrarily limiting your options?
well, can I answer that with I have a unicorn to sell you?
Perfect. Perfect.
No, you can't. You can't. I can't decide. If
Exactly.
I could,
I
then
mean,
we'd have unicorns as well.
mm. So the government has a very, very powerful position. I'm going to show people today that the government is really an intermediary, a backer master. I'm going to come to that in detail. But watch me here.
Ah,
A basic thing such as the food and drinks that are available in the marketplace are not being decided by you. Meaning you're supposed to be a consumer, so to speak, in a market economy. But that economy, even though it's supposed to be a free market economy, it's not, because the government regulations arbitrarily exclude some things from the economy and even force or promote certain things in the economy, which in effect is limiting your options. So there was a time when humans could, but for our own safety, we no longer can do the things I just talked about. Only the very rich and powerful gets to choose what we are permitted to buy and sell, eat and drink, when and where, and at what price we shall have them. And they do this, guess what? To protect us from the evils of a free and free market or a free trade environment. To them, it is better if only the wealthy elites and the politicians they fund decide what is best for the rest of us, their wage slaves that they hire and seek to control to their own benefit. Now, this is critical. This is critical because when you think you're going to the grocery store and just picking up from the shelf your own choice, in effect, you're really picking from among the choices that they've allowed you to choose
they,
from. Am I
that they
right
have
or
put
wrong?
in front of you,
Yes.
right? The stuff that, because so you're within a certain scope.
Yeah.
So, and worse, if it matches your income, where the lower price foods are the unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
are the unhealthy ones. You think, well, I'm hungry, I have to buy this, and then what it does now, it gives you some ailment, and you end up having to go to the doctor. You can't afford the proper doctor. You go into the public hospital, which is overworked and overutilized and
Yes.
over everything except overstocked,
Mhm.
right, with
Yeah.
the medicine that you need. And so you are put in a position, so, and then you die, and then you
Mhm.
have to,
But before
and
but before you die, they extract as much out of you
out
by
of you as they can.
by the options again that they provide. So here we are. First of all,
Exactly.
they're controlling the options of your food, what you can eat, what you can drink, what you can buy, what you can sell. I saw a news item once where a lady was
Sorry,
complaining. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Patterson.
Yes.
They even control the medication that you'll get, because I know even of
We'll come
cases
into that.
where,
Yeah, I come
okay,
into that. It's down
right,
further. I'm going step by step. So I'm starting off with food first
okay, okay,
and
okay,
drink. So can you imagine? So you're while you think you are free and you're choosing your own food and drink, you're not. They're putting the kind
right.
of drink in front of you with whatever kind of chemicals they want in
That
that drink.
sugary stuff to
Yeah.
get you to the
Um,
diabetes level and all of
exactly.
this.
And the
Yeah,
government now, they use the government to regulate out of the market what is good and wholesome and to bring into the market only what gives benefit to their big financial donors who contribute to their political party
uh,
or who give their governments grants and donations and loans and so on. So our government now ends up not working to make sure we have the best food and drinks, but rather that we have the food and drinks that their backers tell them should be in front of us.
right,
Right?
right.
In some countries, they have outlawed unpasteurized milk. So back in the days, you could have a farmer up the road, a small farmer, and he could have his cows, and he could milk his cows and put them in a bottle and come and drop them off
Straight
at the
from the
store
cow.
straight from
Right,
the cow. They make sure
right,
those things are gradually outlawed for your safety, for your health and safety. They want you to be healthy and safe. So you end up now with all kind of different kind of even unreal milk, you know,
right.
synthetic milk, for example, and
Yes,
and
yes,
all kind of substance now, preservatives, because the longer it can stay on the shelf, the better. So you're now buying, instead of
yeah.
having locally produced, short-lived items where you have to buy it kind of like today and drink it by tomorrow, and move on.
So
And
it
it's
becomes very
healthier.
consumer driven,
Yes,
very market driven. Is that
yes.
term market?
It,
Because
so
it comes
it
out to
was
be
more
the
it was
money,
more organic. It was more a part of an organic
right?
exchange relationship. So they now got rid of that and push you into an environment where you're now dependent on certain types of products which are heavily laden now with all kind of additives, preservatives, and
This is true.
coloring, and so you're now losing all the vital nutrients and naturalness of the product and moving to a product which is less nutritious, less natural, and
And more harmful,
they'll tell you they added vitamin or they added
right?
this to it and so on. So very, very dangerous. So my first point, Mr. Francis, is to show that even in our food and drink, we're not free. Do you agree?
I agree.
All
I
right.
agree 100%.
So now we're going to look at another item. This one is,
Oh,
how about
and
clothing? Yeah, go ahead.
incidentally,
Mhm.
you know, medication is expensive, but white rum is cheap.
There you go.
So look at
Inter-
that. you know,
Interesting. And it's
you
it's
know,
upside down. But watch me now. How about
right?
clothing? Does government limit your choices via their regulations? Now, this one requires you to think a little bit because many people think, of course, clothing, you're free to choose your clothing. There's, I can go buy the jeans I want or the shirt I want or the dress I want or whatever. But I'm submitting to you that maybe you're not as free in choosing your clothing as you may think. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Francis?
Hmm. You're not as free in the sense that well, you might be limited by just the good quality stuff. You might be depending on your income. You might not be able to afford it, so it's
Hmm.
limited to you know people who don't shop below Manor Park might be
Hmm.
limited. You can't
Yes,
touch that.
yes, yes.
Then you go downtown and you might get some stuff and you wash it. You wash that jeans 2 times and it fade out. So
Hmm.
you're kind of, but that's what you can afford.
So watch
But
me now.
then what happens? You
Go
keep
ahead, go
buying.
ahead.
You end up buying another cheap jeans, another cheap slippers over and
Hmm.
over, and
So,
then
so,
all
so
that
they
money
have,
accumulated. You know you spend a
yeah.
lot of money over time.
So they may have manipulated your fashion industry. Um,
Right.
in the days of chattel slavery, massa dictated what the slaves could wear. But today, they control a massive fashion industry and effectively block competition. I'm going to show you this. The dressmaker and the tailor cannot match them in price,
Out
volume,
of
or speed.
business. They're literally out of business more for the
Exactly.
most part these days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as simple as that, we in our daily lives may
Oh,
not even recognize it or pay attention to it, but they have actually eliminated our dressmakers and our tailors, and they have given us now mass produce what you have just described, low quality products, uh,
mm-hmm.
because they have constrained our income and then push us into a particular space and say that's where you belong, right?
Right.
So the dressmaker and the tailor cannot match them in price or volume or speed because they've been given an unfair advantage to dominate the marketplace. Who gives them this unfair advantage? Our government.
Yeah, of
And
course.
again, they do this for our own good. They tell us they're doing this for our
Oh,
good
yes.
to protect us. They want to protect us from unscrupulous sellers or traders, such as the
It's like,
small entrepreneurs who might defraud us of the high quality assurance that big
oh,
business
yes.
provides. You
That's
see
so
what I'm
basically that's like master whipping you and then telling you that it's for your own good.
Exactly.
you
Yes,
know.
exactly. Angor says, I would be interested in knowing how many politicians or franchisees of the big American fast food chains, especially the ones starting with K, now our national dish, God help us. So it's interesting if we take the time and break this down. So we look at food and we say that food, they have conned us into a particular
Mhm.
food market and so on. They've destroyed our farming industry. They have moved us to
Yes, I have.
processed food. They've moved us to canned foods. They've moved us to unnatural drinks. We used to make our ginger beer and our lemonade,
Oh man.
suck, and whatever. And they have moved us. They have killed our sugar industry. They have killed our coffee. They have killed our cocoa, and they have
Mm-hmm.
killed our banana. So our government, which is supposed to be working for us, are systematically destroying all the avenues of us feeding ourselves good, nutritious food, destroying the
Right.
avenues of us clothing ourselves, and moving us
Right.
to particular. So that's number two. Now let's look at the third way in which they are enslaving us, if you will. Does government restrict the kind of location, the kind and location of the homes we may live in via their regulations? Now that's a tough question. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, if we're taking it from as from even the garrison level, a lot of garrisons weren't they politically um, created
Mm-hmm,
to have particular voters in all together in one section, and then okay, let's say you manage to move out of a garrison now. Um, you are they dangle these carrots with these scheme houses.
mm-hmm,
Of course, they might throw even a gate around it with a security guard to make you think that you have arrived, but you pay for it through your teeth, even though it's
mm-hmm,
not a mansion.
mm-hmm,
So and then after you live there for a while, maybe you might say, oh, let me add on, and now you further put yourself in debt because
mm-hmm,
there's a good chance that at no time in your working life you're going to ever have that couple million put down to just spend like that. So now
mm-hmm,
you have to go to, you know, you're restricted to living in this particular area or this type of area, even though you're a little better than the man, better off financial than the man in the garrison, but still you are you're still confined to that particular area and that particular kind of living. And truth is that a lot of people, even though they may not be in the garrison, between paying a mortgage and some of the ridiculous amount of money you pay for mortgages,
mm-hmm.
um, they're broke.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They're very broke.
Absolutely.
You can barely
What
put gas in the
percentage
car.
What percentage of people's income does housing take up today? Do you have any idea?
I don't, but I mean, it's
Some are
by
paying more
housing,
than
as in between
50%.
mortgage and
Whether
bills and
whether
so on.
whether renting, no, whether renting or purchasing in a mortgage, what percentage of people's income goes to just having a place to live, a roof over their head?
I
The
might dare say more than 50%.
Absolutely.
I might
The
say, yeah.
standard for life to be reasonable is said to be around 30%, while most Jamaicans, the cost of housing is over 50%, which puts you in a very, very difficult position if the
Yes.
cost of housing is 50%. Because when you add on food to that, I mean, food is going to take out another 30%. I mean, food is a
Hmm.
big cost. But really, when I think about this question about your the kind and location of housing and how government regulation affects these things, if we had, first of all, our land that belongs to us, if that land was ours, if we did not have to slave to buy back the lands that were stolen from our ancestors, then
Aha.
most of us would have already have land and even a familial home that would have been built on it. You'd have had several generations of wealth creation, wealth accumulation, generational wealth transfer taking place, and your cost of housing now would have been so low, maybe in the region of 5 to 10% of your income, which would have allowed you the ability to even expand your wealth base further and
Aha.
be able to have far more option in housing. So by them robbing us of our ancestral lands, of our familial lands, they have placed us in a position where we're going to remain poorer for longer, and
For
many will never.
generations, even if we're not
Yeah,
careful.
yeah, you'll never escape it. Many people will never
Yeah.
escape it. That's why we have squatters. That's why we have ghettos. That's why we have
So
people living
you're
on the margins. That's why you have
It's a
people.
hamster on the treadmill, just going, going, going,
Yeah,
but
you have
not going
persons who have
anywhere.
inherited homes as well. Let's say you inherit your home from your
Right.
grandmother, but because of the low wage environment that they have created and the inflationary environment that they have created, you might even be living in that house and
True.
you can't fix the driveway, you can't
But
replace
you
the
don't
window,
even have to get to that. He can't fix the door.
you can't
You don't even have to get to big things like the roof or the driveway.
exactly
He probably can't fix the door
you can't fix the
or the
plumbing.
window.
You
Exactly.
know. And so the asset that you have now starts to deteriorate. So there's a serious problem that we have here.
Yes.
So we could have more affordable homes, better designs, and successful communal arrangements. But the wealthy elites who control our politicians, they get the regulations that they want, the regulations that benefits them, and they shut out the competition. So once again, all of this is done to protect us poor, vulnerable consumers who, if left alone, would not be able to make good decisions for ourselves, according to the government. Only the God named government knows what's best for us. And so, what they have done is
Uh-huh.
taken our land, they've taken our land away from us, and they have given us NHT and tell us we must contribute from our salary forever. And they will give us affordable housing, sometime a mattress box if you're lucky. And
Yes. Yes. It's true.
and
Very
uh,
true.
and at the end of it, you end up with a country where the vast majority of the people can't even afford a decent roof over their heads. So that's a serious problem. But I want to
Yeah.
move on now to number four. So we talked about
Right.
earlier. We talked about the food. We talked about clothing. We talked about uh,
Housing.
housing, and now we're going to talk about education. A simple one, eh? Education. So that's supposed to be very simple, right? Education. Are we free or not? Let's look at education. Was your education path, the options and the content of your education dictated by government, and your hands were tied by a forced taxation to fund what they prescribed? Yes or no?
Yes, your hands are tied in several ways.
Yeah.
Um, even even taking out taxes, just even the location you're from
Mm-hmm.
would limit your geographic location. That could
Mm-hmm.
limit the access you have to education. That's not freedom, is it?
Mhm. No.
Right? Um, then let's say you make it out and you go to, then there's a body called student loan that
Hmm.
I'm convinced that taking a loan from them is like making a deal with the devil,
Hmm. And,
because
and
they
why
want
do
some
you have to?
ridiculous things. Huh?
Why do you have to get a loan in the first place? I mean,
Why? There
they
you go.
created an environment for that. Now,
That's
I want to quickly sum this up here on something. I want to remember I said, what is your education path? The options, the content, who dictated this, and remember, the way government works is they put a gun to your head and say, "Give me your money," first of all, right? So you have to pay the taxes.
true.
So they take the tax dollars from you and then they prescribe a product for you and say, here's the product you must get. So they decide on your education path, the options, and the content of the curriculum and say, here you go. This is it. So what you end up with, we are the product of a monolithic education system built on a one size fits all paradigm. This
It's
system
true.
ensures we do not understand ourselves, we do not understand human behavior, and we do not understand money. But you guessed it. It was designed to protect us from ourselves, right? Because
Right. And we become drones in the system. These drones just buzzing around, waiting for the next command,
yeah,
following blindly.
yeah,
Right.
because we can't trust, we cannot be trusted with making decisions for
Oh
ourselves.
no.
So
Oh
they've
no.
decided for us. Now, can you imagine now? Just imagine with me. Can you imagine what Jamaica would be like if the vast majority of us were truly educated? Can you imagine what Jamaica would be like with a highly informed, highly intelligent, and highly competent population? Can you imagine a Jamaica where most of us can reason from cause to effect, where
Wow.
most of us can
Wow.
comprehend complex arguments, where most of us can solve more than basic mathematical problems, including statistics and calculus?
Wow.
Now, when I think about that Jamaica, I see Singapore immediately because that's what they
Oh,
did.
yes. Oh,
They
yes.
made
Oh,
sure
yes.
they
Oh,
made
yes.
sure that their citizens received an education that made them highly intelligent, highly competent, highly informed. They can reason from cause to effect. They can comprehend complex arguments, and they can solve more than basic mathematical problems. If our education system was actually free from government monopoly, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
teachers, parents, and students would have real choice and a marketplace of opportunities to lift this country to a first class status in no time. But because we have been duped into thinking that what we have is what we should have, we end up with a system that allows massa or the background master that is put in place
Yes.
to keep us mentally backwards so that we can continue to be driven as wage slaves
Yeah.
for as long as
Well,
is
well,
required.
remember, it's the easiest way once you take control of the mind, or it's the easiest way to control the masses,
Mhm.
limit the options of education. And as a former teacher, I can tell you that, and I taught in one of those schools, secondary school turned
Mhm.
high school. So it was not I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't the best of the students. You had some really hardworking students, but then even though they had moved from the secondary school to the high school, as they
Mhm.
would put it, the system in there was still no good. So you're pushing these kids. I mean, you get a child reach fifth form and can barely read, and you wonder how does this happen?
Yeah, it's very simple.
How
You make sure that basic schools are run by people who don't know what they're doing for the most part. That's number one. When you go to a basic school in Jamaica, normally, God bless them, you have many loving, thoughtful, well-meaning individuals, but are they really equipped to
to
take
deal with?
a
Yeah,
3-year-old and develop that mind? What Lee Kuan Yew did was to say we need to have highly qualified and competent persons dealing with those basic minds.
so you go to the root.
Yes. So when you make sure your basic school is actually a school, is actually a school that's going to
Ah,
develop the thinking skills, the analytical skills, the problem
right,
solving skills, the teamwork skills at that early level, and you translate that now into a primary school where you're now going also to teachers who are equipped and skilled to do what needs to be done, and you keep building on that. In Jamaica, what we have had is a plaything. We have played with our children in basic schools. We have played with them in primary schools, and then we dump them into these high schools, depending on what where you are. So
right.
if your parents would pay for private lessons and send you to an elite preparatory school, chances are you will be in one of the more affluent high schools where you have
Right,
quality teachers and quality supplies to
right.
work with. If you're not one of them, one of those, chances are you're going to end up in a dumping ground like where I went to Spanish Town Secondary, and there you learn to be a fool unless something goes wrong and you get spit off the conveyor belt the wrong way, like must have happened with me and a few others. But
Right.
big up to Wayne Noble. Good to see you on. Angor, Delton Hamilton. Good to see you all on. I'm seeing your comments here. Very nice comments. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Delton has a question, by the way.
Oh, where's the question? What was it? Read it for me.
He's saying, please may I ask who is Mr. Dwayne Francis?
Ah, oh, Mr. Francis, who are you?
Well, I am the webmaster for the for the United, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm that guy I'm the techie, right? So
Okay.
you won't really see me in front of the camera much, but
There you go. So Mr.
I'll
Francis
work to make
is our
sure
new.
that we
Yeah.
stay online.
So Mr. Francis is our new webmaster. and he's going to make sure that what you see on the website is what you should see. So he's pretty new to the organization, but most importantly, he's a Jamaican. He's a
That's
fellow
wonderful.
Jamaican who, like all of us, want good governance for Jamaica, and so he's using the opportunity tonight to just tease out some of the things I talk about, to question them, or to understand them, or to play them back in terms of his own, points of view. So moving right along, because we have to wrap up fairly quickly, I want to jump into the question now of medicine. Do you have the freedom to access your preferred option of medicine and medical practitioners without being labeled a criminal if you go outside of the regulated options?
Mhm. We do not. And I can give you a quick example
Yes,
that I know of personally. So, like, there's a particular medication for people who have high levels of pain called pethidine, right?
yes.
Now, recently there has been a case where that medication is suddenly very scarce,
Hmm.
right? And so they would want, even some people with sickle cell would use it depending on their pain level, right? So
Hmm.
now they'd want some people to be using more morphine, but some people are allergic to morphine. Question is, what are those people who are allergic to morphine to do,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
What are your options, eh?
Exactly. You know, because, morphine and pethidine, these are like narcotic strength, um,
Hmm.
you know?
So,
So,
hmm. So what I'm thinking of here as well is the whole idea of what really is medicine, what is and who is a medical practitioner. So they have gotten us to accept a paradigm that medicine is what you see for the most part being advertised by the Eurocentric, powerful pharmaceutical companies, and
okay.
that a medical practitioner is one who has gone through the schooling that they have designed and brainwashed our doctors. And I'm not downplaying doctors, don't get me
Right,
wrong. I
right,
don't mean to be insulting because you've done your work,
right.
you've done it and whatever. But
Absolutely.
maybe that's not the only way, and that's not the only. If somebody designed a particular course of study and a particular licensing regime, and say this is the way, walk ye in it. It's okay for us to question that way, isn't it? It's okay for us to
Yeah.
ask, is this the only
Well,
way?
we should have the freedom to question, right?
Yeah. Is this the right way? But instead they say to us, don't question it. We have set it up. This is it. Anybody who dares to do something other than this, you're a criminal. So we don't want to hear of anything else. We don't want to see anything else. So your medicine and your medical practitioners are prescribed and mandated by government, and all other options are criminalized or demonized.
This is true.
While while your earnings are taxed away or devalued by inflation to ensure you cannot buy whatever you care to buy. So if you want to try something else, they have narrowed you down to say, no, you must go and use the free government service because we have taken away your money through overtaxation and devaluation and inflation and push you over here and say, this is the way, walk in it. They have wiped our brain cells clean of our ancestral knowledge about our trees, our plants, and our herbs, while ensuring that we have little to no knowledge about our bodies, how to heal it by what we eat, how to heal it naturally, when and how to sleep, um, what we can or cannot do to cause certain parts of our bodies to respond in a particular way, how we live and how we relate to each other, how that affects our health. So they have dumbed us down to simply going to the doctor blindly and he writes a prescription and say go and fill it at a pharmacy, full stop.
Which, to add to that, and when
Yes.
he writes a prescription and you get a medication, there's a good chance you need another medication to
Oh, of
counteract the
course.
side effects of the first one. And,
Absolutely.
and maybe a third one to counteract the side effects of the one that you used to counteract the first one.
Absolutely. And
Right?
the more you're doing this, you're moving away. the system is not designed for you to be intelligent about your body. That's the bottom line. It's
True.
designed for you to be as ignorant as possible, dependent as possible, and move as far away from any inexpensive solution as possible. So some problems you have, I don't know because I'm not an expert in this, but I can tell you for sure. I'm sure there are many problems we encounter which could be solved by one, us having a better understanding of our bodies. That's number one. Number two, us understanding how we can use food, what we eat to heal ourselves. That's number two.
Yes.
And number three, understanding the plants and herbs and trees around us and how to leverage those to improve our health and
Right.
good health.
Right.
And that would be
Right.
free. That would be very inexpensive. Just imagine if if we were so educated and so informed that by our diet, not some little play pit thing that I have on TV that's all
Yeah,
eat and
man.
exercise. I mean really understand
Conscious, a
exercise.
conscious
Yeah.
effort
Yeah.
to,
And you
yeah.
understand it. You're not just hearing it generically or topographically. Your school system is so designed that when you leave basic, primary, high school, university, you have a good command of your physical constitution. You understand how your body works and what you need to do. You can tell when you have done the wrong things and you know exactly what to do to fix it. You're not highly dependent. Your doctor now becomes like your, like if you're an athlete and your coach is there to just coach you along and to make sure you're doing the right,
Right.
your doctor becomes more a coach than somebody who just writes European prescriptions and say, "Hey, go
Right.
get this." You follow me? So
Totally.
I am hoping that by now our listeners see how much of a slave we are with government as the backroom master, standing in for the PSOJ oligarchs or the rich elites or plantocracy or the colonial masters, who are really our modern day slave owners because they are controlling the levers to our lives. They're controlling our food, our drink, our education, our healthcare in a way that results
Or
in us becoming less independent, more
more
dependent,
dependent on them.
yes, and lacking the means to make good choices or even access to the good choices because they're taking them away. Am I making any
There's
sense
a
here?
That's making a lot of sense. As a matter of fact, it's like them creating the problem and then rescuing you,
Yes,
and then wanting to be complimented for rescuing you from the problem that they created,
exactly.
that they
And the
have created.
rescue is a
You know,
facade.
it is a facade.
So
You know,
so they push you overboard. So whoops, uh, I'm sorry you slipped overboard.
but let me stretch and help you. Dude, you
And
push me over this. You push me
they,
over. You know,
they throw you a what do you call it now? One
lifeboat.
of those
Life boy, the tube
yeah,
looking
yeah,
thing.
the
Right.
two.
Yeah.
But they bore some hole in
Yeah.
it before they throw it out.
Yeah, man.
So
Oh yeah.
while you're in it, you soon realize that you're sinking. So but putting fun and joke aside, I have now explained, how they are also controlling us, how they're enslaving us through our medicine. How about banking, investing, lending, borrowing, and business? Are you free to choose what's best for you, or has government again dictated your choices and outlawed options just because they can?
You know you're not free, and because of this, it just my estimation. Because of this foolishness with the banks, for example, you're not free to get the best option, which is why many loan shark companies have risen up in the last few years,
Hmm.
right? Where people, well, that are perceived as a better option.
Yes.
I don't know if it really is, but it might be easier to get, but the payback might be ooh, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So so that's them controlling you again because you're now forced to go somewhere else. That is
Hmm.
not always in your best interest either. I mean, I know
Absolutely.
that's just scratching the surface, but
Yeah,
you
this
know,
is one of the most subtle areas of control to which we have been subjected. And it gets more and more subtle with each new regulation designed to protect us. Watch what they have done. They have centralized our banking in the hands of a few who gets to decide who is included and who is excluded,
Right.
thus robbing us of the freedom of entering into whatever arrangements we wish. The banking laws, is such that you and I cannot develop any form of banking relationship outside of what they have prescribed. I wonder if you realize the
True.
trend here.
This is
So,
true.
a small group of people, which I will call the elites, wealthy elites, whether they're locally in the PSOJ oligarchy or they're internationally a part of the global elites, but a few people compared to the entire world population, they get to make some laws. And one of them is they create what is called a central bank. And in the central
Right.
bank, they've centralized the banking. And when you centralize, it's always for better controlling, for you to be more able to control. So they
Right.
centralize banking in the hands of a few people. And then they outlaw you from being able to create any kind of banking solutions. You can't do it.
Hmm.
The only way for you to
Yeah.
do it, you have to do it the way they prescribed, and the way they prescribed is you'd have to be among the wealthy elites to do it. So
Ah,
they exclude you from the banking sector, and then they are able now to decide which of you will they permit to participate as a customer
ah.
and who they will exclude as a customer.
Who
And by
will play and who
giving
will
that
sit on the
choice,
bench?
yes, if you can now manipulate banking that way, you can eliminate your opponents, which they're trying to do with the UIC by not giving us our bank account. So they have
Whoa.
regulated. Here's what they have done. They have actually regulated away your freedom to create or get into investment opportunities that could lift many out of poverty. That space is preserved for the rich and powerful to own, and the rest of us to be nothing but consumers who they can lead like lambs to the economic slaughter.
Not
So every time there's a financial crisis, who gets wiped out? Wiped out. The ordinary.
always a little man.
Yes,
Yep.
you lose your house, you lose your
Yep.
investment, you lose your retirement. And you hear some all kind of stuff about bailouts or whatever. And we the people are left holding the bag. Just like in FinSac, it was we the people who suffered, not these.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
look, they control your food, they control your clothing, they control your housing, they control your medicine, they control your education, they control
Control
your
your money. Yep.
finances. All on this up.
Yeah. That is indeed the illusion of freedom.
So it's yeah, so we're really being fooled like crazy that we're free.
Yeah.
Now here's the next thing. Does government legislation creates monopolistic forces to manipulate money supply, interest rate, and exchange rate, thus robbing us of our earnings? Very important to know. Who is controlling the money supply of our country? Who is controlling interest rate? Who is controlling it? If we were in a free market economy, as they claim we are, there'd be nobody manipulating our money supply,
There's nobody
nobody
manipulating.
manipulating our interest rate. Nobody, because they would not have the power to do that. You can only have the
Right.
power to do this through legislation,
Right.
because nobody would be big enough to be able to do it
To
without.
manipulate financial markets. Right.
Exactly, because the competition would be too stiff, right?
Right.
So
True. Very
I
true.
raise this question because I know that most Jamaicans, most people around the world don't understand what is money supply, who controls money supply. The reason we have terrible inflation is because government, whether local or international or both, having laws and regulation that gives tremendous power to a few people can dilute your money at will. They can introduce massive amount of currencies into a market and dilute it. Like Jamaica, for example, we don't produce
Right.
our own money. We don't print our own money. So
Right.
without our government even knowing it, those who they have given the authority to print our money overseas can actually print excess money and bring that into the market and buy up our lands without us even knowing. We don't even know. The government doesn't even know. For
Wow.
example, right? So
Wow.
this is not hypothetical, by the way. This is real.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
so a company overseas and governments overseas that control the printing of our money could produce a volume of money, place this in certain person's bank account, and they can go and buy up a beach, buy up a hotel, buy
Wow.
up a business. And you're saying, why is it? And you, the people who are here, when they do that, right? If you put counterfeit money into a system, you dilute all the other monies in the system. So if you and I are the only two persons in an economy, and both of us have $1,000, the GDP of that economy cannot be greater than $2,000 because you have one and I have one.
Right.
If you figure out a way to print some money, and you went out and print another $1,000, meaning you didn't earn it, you just kind of get it, you just print it. 1,000. The GDP of the economy now goes to $3,000. But guess what? My percentage of that valuation now drops from 50% to 33%. So I've just lost nearly 20% of my money, the value of my money, just by
Right.
that activity. So that's why the Jamaican people wake up every day and can't buy food and can't pay rent because somebody is diluting their money, which you experience as inflation.
Yes,
You
yes.
follow me? So
So yeah, yeah.
you're trying to figure out what's going on. How come we can't make ends meet? How come we can't catch up? You'll never catch up. You'll never. You have no hope. The only way you can catch up,
It's beyond that treadmill going and going.
the only way for you to catch up is if you are, let's say, like me. I spend most of my life studying money. So I'm a CPA by profession. I love economics. I study markets. And let's say you are able to make a few wise investment, which most people can't make. For you to be able to make
They're not
wise
equipped to.
investment, you're not equipped. So they
They're
can
not
tell you,
equipped
they
to.
can. I heard the other day where they're telling teachers, right, the education minister, when they were talking about teacher salaries and so on, they tell them how they must go and invest and all kind of foolishness and get financial literacy. The amount of financial literacy you need to be able to compete in the investment market is tremendous. You'll never have it. It's too great for you to be doing your job. Like you're a, let's say you're an appliance repair technician and you're going around repairing appliance. Where do you have time to study money at
Financial
that
market.
level
Exactly.
to be able
To be able
to
to make.
really compete, to go into that space? And you can't. The teacher can't do it. Yeah. So what happens then is it's a fake and false thing to say, go do this. In the meantime, you have no idea that every time you try to climb, somebody is chopping out the legs from under
Yank,
you.
yank that right up. Yeah, man.
So they're chopping out the legs from under you, and you're trying to climb up this ladder, and they just keep chopping the leg off, and you have no idea because how are they doing it? They're manipulating money supply, they're manipulating interest rate, they're manipulating exchange rate, and so because you're on the lower end of the food chain, you just bear the brunt of it.
Brunt of everything. That's
Yeah.
why, I've always said that, when they come and they talk about economic growth,
Mhm.
first question I ask is for who?
Yes.
Second question I ask is it means nothing until it translates to the pocket of the ordinary man. Anything
Absolutely.
else is just fancy words,
Absolutely.
you know?
And that's what it
So
has
until
been.
then, right,
There's no growth. Jamaica, the only growth that's happening is, for example, if you look at the banking sector, when we were suffering, even during the pandemic, if you notice, as poor as we were and as
right.
unproductive as we were, the bank was still making billions in profit.
Oh, yes, man.
That's how the system is designed. It's rigged for that to happen. Now, let me continue here quickly. Now, so a slave, in my opinion, is one whose earnings are owned by his master. A very simple definition. In today's version of slavery, government is an intermediary for those who are legally allowed to own you and your earnings by stealth. So it's a stealthy, tricky little thing. A central banking monopoly gets to manipulate the money supply, interest rate, and exchange rate in favor of the rich and powerful. This has proven to be the most successful tool ever invented to transfer wealth from the many to a few, while making the losers believe the arrangement is to their benefit. Almost everybody you know accept the banking system as being legit. It's okay. It's not. It's a scam. Uh,
It is.
money is supposed to be a store of value, a store of your time, a store of your freedom that you have expended on productive activities. Money is 50% of every transaction almost you do in the world. As such,
True.
If the monetary system is fraudulent by design, and it is, we have been defrauded on a massive scale. Massive scale. This means the government of Jamaica is party to the greatest financial fraud ever committed against humanity by
Wow.
establishing
Wow.
legal tender laws, by establishing a central banking system, a monopolistic banking cartel. The government is the biggest scammer on the planet. So when they talk about shutting down scamming, well, we should be shutting down the government because they are the biggest scammers on the planet. If your time and freedom has been stolen via a fraudulent monetary system or any other system, you are a
Right.
slave and should be keen on escaping that plantation. But too many don't realize that they're in slavery and therefore are not keen to be aggressive about escaping
About
that
this.
plantation.
And I
So,
think too, they're also just afraid or just they've already been defeated in their mind that even sometimes if you put the truth in front of them, say, hey, you're oppressed, they're
mhm,
like, can't bother. I need to work to try to make that barely make that dollar.
yeah,
I think it was Harriet Tubman who said, I freed 1,000 slaves and I would have freed 1,000 more if they knew that they were slaves.
absolutely. And that is the problem. Now,
Yeah.
remember, I said the school system before? Back in slavery, right?
Right.
Back in the chattel slavery, the days of chains and whips, where they didn't want the slaves to learn to read for this very reason.
Right.
If the slaves
For this
learned to
very
read, they could read a map, they could have written instructions to say, okay,
reason.
we're going to run from the plantation tonight, you see? So what are you going to do? You're going to look for the North Star. You can read it, yeah?
Right.
And you're going to go down a path there, so, and when you get there, you're going to turn left or right. You're going to go
Cross the river.
northeast,
Yeah.
whatever. Now, if you can't read, that information has to be verbally you have to memorize and it's kind of harder, yeah? If you can't read, you can't if you can't capture information exchange between your enemies and
Process.
read it
Right.
and figure it out, right? So that's the whole idea. So even today, while in our education system it's no longer about reading and writing per se, even though many Jamaicans still can't read and write, to be honest with you, it's now about misinformation or misdirection. I call it miseducation. So if you don't understand what you should understand, then you don't know what to look for, you don't know what's happening to you, so you don't know what to do about it, and so you remain paralyzed. And so our people are paralyzed right now, and only a few of
Right.
us are aware. And the question is, can we find a way to overcome the hurdle that prevents us from helping them to become aware? So back to the main topic. If your food, your clothing, housing, healthcare, personal finances, and economy are not freely decided by you, would you say you are free or enslaved?
You're on a plantation.
The answer is
Pretty
obvious.
much. Yeah.
Well, let's turn our attention quickly now to the central figure in all of this, because you should have picked it up all night. The central figure in all of this is government.
Yes.
And this is important because if it's government, then it means we can fix the problem. Because all we have to do
Right.
is to A, get rid of the government, and B, put in place a proper government.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
And so
It's
to
true.
solve that problem, we first have to understand though what is the role of government, because many third parties in Jamaica fail for one simple reason. They come to the Jamaican people and they say to them, hey, give us your vote and we will do better than them. But guess what? The people don't know what better means. The people don't know what is the role of government, what is better. So it's a hard choice because how will you be better than them? You said someone will say, oh, I'm going to give you free education, I'm going to give you free healthcare, I'm going to give you free money, I'm going to give you free water, all those gimmicks, as opposed to helping people understand what government really is and what they should be fighting for or fighting against. Now, tonight I wanted to really pitch on some of those pieces. What is the role of government? If we're to have a truly free and fair society, what is the role of government? That's a question worthy of careful study. It
This is
should be of
true.
interest to every intelligent man and woman, boy and girl, because we cannot vote intelligently without this knowledge. The role of government in a truly free
Yes.
and fair society is as follows. One, to protect the right of every individual to enjoy their life, liberty, and property as they see fit, provided the individual does not initiate force or use fraud to infringe on the life, liberty, or property of
Others.
others. I bet you some most Jamaicans don't know this. And so when they think of government, they don't think of this. Number two, what is the role of government? Number two, the second role of government is to prosecute and punish anyone who chooses to initiate force or use fraud to get their way or to infringe on the life, liberty, or property of others. Most can appreciate that part because they're used to that. The third thing why you need government is to make just and impartial or objective laws that respect your individual rights with one single goal: maximizing your individual liberty and promoting your personal responsibility. So, a good government will only engage in laws that are just and impartial. No favoritism to big business, for
Right.
example. Yeah.
Right.
No favoritism to external stakeholders like their big lenders from outside. So
Yeah,
that's number
no,
three.
no favors for low friends in high places.
Exactly. So the fourth purpose now of government or role is to enforce legally binding contracts between parties and to adjudicate disputes between individuals and groups in accordance with the rule of law, just laws, objective laws, impartial laws. And the ultimate goal of this is always to fully protect the rights of every individual. Notice that the role of government is really centered around protecting you as an individual.
Yes, and
It's
not.
not there. Yeah, it's not there to
Yeah.
do these grand design projects. It's there to make sure that you as an individual have the freedom, the safety, security to go about your lawful business to be able to make the best of yourself. Number five, the fifth reason for government is to efficiently and effectively provide public, note that word, public goods and services only, and to do so at the lowest possible cost to taxpayers in a customer friendly and respectful way. This includes police service, justice system, national defense, public infrastructure such as roads, streetlights, sidewalks, parks,
Right.
areas, community centers, libraries, etc. The sixth role is to ensure a free and fair electoral system and governance model that does not allow, listen now, a governance model that does not allow anyone or any group, local or foreign, to control or unduly influence the government. Very important. So if you have good governance, that's what you're going to have. You're going to have a governance model that does not allow any one person or any group of person, local or foreign, to control or unduly influence the government. Number seven, the final point, the role of government is to ensure a truly free and fair market economy by not competing with the private sector or giving any individual, group, or government any monopolistic advantage or preferential treatment in the production, purchase, or sale of any, listen now, private goods or service. Notice I make a clear distinction between public goods and
Distinction.
private goods. Yeah,
Yes.
they're very
Yes.
different.
Clear distinction.
So government must stay in its lane. If government stays in its lane, you're going to end up with a safe, clean, and orderly country. And if we, the private sector, because that's what we are the private sector. The public sector is the government. The private sector is we, the people, not the PSOJ. I know they have taken it over and said them, but not them. Are we? We are the private sector. So if the private sector, that's we, are allowed our freedom to have a free and fair market economy, where government doesn't interfere with monopolistic advantages to their friends and company, we would be able to produce, purchase, and sell private goods at competitive prices and high quality and without any big monopolistic giants being able to overshadow us and remove our choices and limit our
Right.
choices because we would have the power as the ultimate arbiter of our faith as individuals operating in a market. And that's what a market is. A market, I know they talk about market and they say free market is bad. No, no, no. Remember, the word market means people. It's me and
Right.
you, it's me and you buying and selling, trading value for value with each other. So when you hear market, it's not bad. Market is good. And the free market is the best because a free market means you are free to trade. So you and I could come up with a banking solution and there's no government to stop
Okay.
us because we can build a banking solution. There's no regulation that says no. The only regulation is this: you cannot use force and you cannot use fraud. So you and I come up with a new idea, we can implement that idea as long as we're not forcing anybody to participate and we're not defrauding anybody. So you don't need a whole heap of regulation and a whole heap of laws. What you need clarity around the law, clarity that every one of we have the right to do whatever we want with our life, our time, and our property, as long as we're not using force or fraud to infringe on anybody else's life, anybody else's liberty, or anybody else's property. Then now we can have a mosaic of products and services, new ideas competing with each other in a marketplace of ideas, as opposed to a government monopolistic giant that dictates, restricts, limits, and deny the people of this country the freedom to produce and grow. And we would. If it wasn't for the government of Jamaica, we would be one of the richest nation on earth today because our people
Wow.
already have the desire to produce and create. It's just that they're
That
being
is
oppressed
true.
and suppressed by their government.
It is true. That is true. That is
That
true.
is the problem.
Hmm.
And the UIC has been carefully developing the solution. And I can tell you by what is not the role of government. It is not the role of government to own or control us. We're not its children. It is not our parent. I know
Correct.
sometime in school they try to explain government in terms of parent and child. No, we are the children. And the government is not our parent. We are not its servant. And it is not our master. It is more like an umpire or a referee. It is there to ensure we each play according to objective rules that are just and clear. An umpire doesn't just come in and try to dominate the players. No, the umpire says, okay, everybody, you understand the rules? Yeah, yeah. So you play by the rules, you play by the rules, and that's it.
Right.
They don't come in there and try to know change the rules midstream or give, okay, me like you as a player. I'm going to give you some special benefits because I like you more than the other players.
Or
No,
you
government
remember
doesn't come
Animal
back.
Farm?
Go ahead,
Remember that
sorry.
book Animal Farm?
Yes, I
Where
remember
it
it.
started out with some animals are all animals are equal, and then it got to a point where some animals are more equal than some.
Exactly.
You remember? Okay.
We have to get rid of the animal farm mentality there. You know?
Right.
So I'm going through now a quick list of what government is not. So it's not your parent. You're not its child. It's not your master. Now, it is not the role of government to set some grand design for us as a collective, except to ensure we have a safe, clean, and orderly environment in which
Right.
we may choose to achieve our maximum potential as individuals or groups. I know we've been made used to the idea that, some big, bright, bold person comes and he has a big visionary plan for us to go to the moon and he can sacrifice any one of us to get there because he's the big, grand emperor or king or chief or prime minister. No, 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 no. The first role of government is not no big grand design. It is to protect your rights, which means none of us may be sacrificed by the government to achieve some grand design. So I'll say it again. It is not the role of government to set some grand design for us as a collective, except to ensure we have a safe environment, a clean environment, an orderly environment in which to realize our maximum potential as individuals. Of course, it's a choice. You may choose not to realize your potential, but the option must be there, the opportunity must be there. Number three, it is not the role of government to engage in charity, believe it or not. I know it sounds strange because they have tricked us into this. Charity is not the work of government because charity can only be charity if it's voluntary. If you come and
Right.
stick me up and take $1,000 from me to go give a man that's hungry, that's not charity, that's theft. You follow me? If you stick me up and thief my $1,000 and give to a man who is hungry, that's not charity. That is theft. Give him your
That is theft.
$100. You understand me? So it's not the role of government to engage in charity. Now, don't get me wrong. Charity is important, and there's a place for
Correct.
charity, and charity will be provided because all of us deep down are charitable. All of us feel bad when we walk on the street and we see somebody naked or
In
hungry
need.
or suffering.
Right.
We all want to
Right.
help. And the only reason why we're helping less is because the government is taking over that space more. And then we now lose our conscience because we're believing, oh, the government must help them. That's the mindset they give us. And then we stop being charitable when we should be. We stop forming our charitable societies and going out there and helping, feeding the homeless and
We
help.
stop being our brother's keeper.
Exactly, because they've taken away that fundamental human dignity in us, that desire in us to help each other. And we would do it. But watch this. If government doesn't do charity but does its work, you'll have less need for charity. if the government
Ah,
if the
yes,
government
yes,
makes
yes,
sure we have
yes,
a safe
yes,
environment
yes,
and a clean environment and an orderly environment and a one
yes.
where we can all live and earn and retire with dignity, then more people are going to be successful. More people are going to be happy. More people are going to be stable. If the government returned our land to us and we can now build our homes and our own lands and so on, guess what? You'll have less homeless people. You would have less financially insecure people because you'd have a stable economic base built on the foundation of your ancestral heritage. But instead, them thief our ancestors' land, force us to slave and buy it back, and then tell us they're going to give us charity. They want to put us on path programs. Yeah? No. Give the people back their rights and freedom. Give them back the assets stolen from their forefathers, and they will be able to rise from the ashes and build great
Like a
solutions.
phoenix. All right.
Yeah. So
Yep.
the people making their own individual or group choices are the ones who should decide to whom and where their funds go in terms of charity. Just imagine if Jamaicans, instead of being taxed away your money for Andrew and Mark to decide who it goes to. Suppose you had more money in your pocket and you get to decide which charitable objective you
Mhm.
want to donate to for that to take care of whatever. You follow me? Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
And so it is not
Makes
the
a
role of
lot of sense.
government also to redistribute wealth. I know they trick us with that and tell us all kind of foolishness. It is not the role of government to distribute wealth, to redistribute wealth, or to try to make us economical equals. Instead, it should stop creating poverty by not interfering with our lives and our economy because they're the ones creating. When they give concentrated power to the banking cartels, which devalue our currency, manipulate our money supply, manipulate interest rate, inflate away the value of our
This
money,
is
and
true.
push us into
This
poverty,
is true.
that is the problem. Don't tell us that you want to redistribute wealth by taking more of our taxes to go give to the poor. No, stop making us poor, and then we will be able to take care of the rest. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense because what in turn will happen now is that we'll get rid of this mentality that a lot of people have where they think that the only way to become financially stable is to do the underhanded stuff.
Absolutely. They're,
So
they're,
you
they're
get rid so you
manufacturing
solve
products.
one crime problem there, so
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. If people can earn a decent living and have an economy, a society which is fair and just by design, you have less corruption, less theft, less need to get to do anything underhanded because the system now works. It works for you.
Right.
So unfortunately, since they've already done so many wrong, we will now have to carefully reverse those wrongs without causing harm. So a UIC government would have to do some remedial damage control and correction. So number one, we have to make sure we provide affordable, decent, quality housing, and we have a plan for that. We have to
Sure.
make sure we
Right.
provide a youth employment program. We have a plan for that. We have to transition the healthcare system with a mixture of education, preventative care, reintroducing knowledge of our body and our herbs and so on, transition our people to that. So we're not talking about overnight from A to B, because you have to now fix the fact that a lot of damage has been done mentally,
Right.
economically, socially. So we have to transition up. But we can't live the same way we have lived before. We can't continue the governance model that has failed us in the past and continue on that path. So we have run out of time tonight, because I should have ended about 16 minutes ago. So you and I are going to come back to this another night and finish up.
Yes, man. Yes,
Time
man.
flies.
Is
But that's correct. Wayne Noble, the UIC has the blueprint. We have the solution for Jamaica. In fact, our solution is good for the world. We're going to be Singapore on steroids. We're going to take the success of Singapore, because Singapore is not perfect. They've missed some key steps, but they've done very, very well on some important steps. We're now building on top of their successes. We're drawing on our knowledge from all the countries. I've looked at the Netherlands, I've been there, studied their agricultural sector, for example, what makes them
right.
the leading producer of food in the world. I've been to China. How did they accomplish their fast growth in terms of moving from a very poor backwater communist country to a partial communist
Oh, a
capitalist
host.
country? You know, I have
Yeah.
studied Ghana, looked at how, why is it, even though they have 30 million people, which are almost identical to us, and they have far more land than us, and they have far more resources than us, why have they failed to achieve their full potential? I've studied that. I've been to Myanmar, looked at their serious conflicts they have there and why they're having it and how it has damaged their economy. I have been to Cuba. I've been to, of course, Germany, France, UK. Look
Right.
at all this stuff. And what I can conclude and tell you, that the UIC has the fundamental answer, and it begins and ends with two simple words: good governance. If we build a good governance system, which we have, if we implement that good governance system, which we will have a new Jamaica. So three little words or statements: new system, new leadership, new Jamaica. That's what we're going to get. Thank you very much, Mr. Francis. Thanks to all of you
Thank you
for being
for
on tonight.
letting me in.
My pleasure.
Right.
One
Night,
Jamaica,
everyone.
we're stronger together. Good
Yes,
night.
we are. All
Take care.
right.
See you soon.
Yeah, man. Take care.
Bye
All
bye.
right. Yes.
UIC Liberty TV. Change you can trust.